The countdown is on. No, not the presidential election, but the race to stop our nation from ending in a shutdown. The D.C. crowd is back after a long summer vacation, and Speaker Mike Johnson wants to get it done before the month's end and pass the SAVE Act. But the Senate is already letting him know it's DOA. That's dead on arrival. But there's nothing like playing chicken with the future of our republic. And depending on what poll you read or which TV show you watch this weekend, Harris and Trump are neck and neck in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and according to the governor of North Carolina, his state too. What does that mean for you and me? Well, I'm Bryan Rudnick, fearlessly hosting Rally for the Republic from the free state of Florida. And I've got about 10 more minutes, 3 topics to give you, and 1 solution right after the break.
This is a battle cry for the American way of life and a relentless pursuit of truth and justice. It comes from a voice with unmatched experience and unyielding resolve. Join us as we dissect current events and tip the scales in your favor. This is Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
This is Bryan Rudnick here in the Rally for the Republic headquarters in the free state of Florida. Before we get into the topics that I want to share with you today, I want to follow up on one topic we covered in a prior episode. My faithful freedom-loving followers will remember that I was running a campaign in Florida's 23rd Congressional District until the primary this past August. And I spent some time in a recent episode explaining why the GOP nominee will not be a conservative fighter, and more importantly, why he can't win the general election. It's a lesson I want to stress in this episode as we start focusing on the fight in Congress over the funding, and when you start thinking about the Thrilla and Phila that's going to happen on ABC tomorrow night. So if the GOP is going to be the party that cuts government spending, cuts unnecessary regulations, strengthens our military, supports parents, and gets the whole country back on track after what we've been through with pandemics and inflations and pronouns and whatever else, there's 2 key things we've got to do here. There's a lot of things that have to be done, but we're going to focus on these 2 big things right now. So we can't stop being true to our conservative principles. We can't pass legislation that just goes along, gets along, more spending. There's got to be cuts from somewhere. But that's what we've promised to deliver, and that's what we've got to deliver. But we've also got to be the party that shows the people that we're delivering for them. People can't think about 10 generations from now with cuts. We've got to show people what we're doing to help them today and what they want. That's what the representative government is all about. And you have to remember, not everybody is MAGA. And they're not all crazy radical Kamala, Bernie, and AOC supporters. Sometimes they're RFK Jr. supporters. And sometimes they're just too damn busy to care. Life has gotten in the way. And as you know, life is a whole lot of black and a whole lot of white and meets somewhere in the middle with gray. But in politics, it's a whole lot of purple. And it's all about how do you push that purple to blue or push it to red. And that's about tactics, not dogma. So with 56 days left in this election, obviously, we need a win. We need a win at the ballot box. We can't be allowing people to lie, cheat, and steal. And Donald Trump's right for being concerned about that. And the Democrats, they don't like it when Donald Trump talks about enforcing the laws. They don't like it when you enforce them at the border. They don't like it when you enforce it at the ballot box. They don't even like it when you try to pass a SAVE Act that would safeguard our elections. No, they're not interested in enforcing the law. And that's why you, the everyday American, the person who loves freedom, loves the republic, has to focus on winning locally, winning congressional districts, winning state by state, having legislative wins that you support. We can't strictly be focused on the White House. You've got to remember there are down ballot candidates that need our help, and there's a lot of work to be done there. And you've got to remember that candidates, consultants have to understand what I said in the first big point, staying true to our principles. And in staying true to our principles, that doesn't mean that we have to suffer from perennial candidates because they're the most MAGA, they're the most conservative. You've got to make sure that we support candidates who actually have a pathway to victory. Not because they won the nominee do we owe them their support. We don't. Candidates aren't owed support because they're candidates. And they're definitely not owed support just because they're the nominee. We don't have to blindly follow. And that's one of the problems our party faces. Yes, be true to our principles, but we don't have to be stupid. We need to win. So if a candidate can't win, abandon them and go help people who can win, because not everyone in life is a winner. Look at this Florida 23 race. We got Joe Kaufman, proven perennial loser. So 2 media outlets have obviously uncovered what I said in early August, what I was quoted talking about in the media that caused me to get a cease and desist letter from the loser current nominee. And the Sun Sentinel did an after action article days after the race, and they quoted Democrats and consultants who said, yeah, the only guy we were worried about winning was Robert Weinroth, who, by the way, was my candidate, because he actually had crossover appeal. And the guy that's now the nominee does not have crossover appeal. And then they brought up in the Cook Political Report this weekend, who handicaps races, how this race that would have been a likely Democrat seat, meaning Republicans would have had a shot of winning, will now be transferred to the column of solid Democrat, meaning a Republican has no chance of winning, not only because the NRCC is showing no interest in the race, but literally because Joe Kaufman is a perennial loser, like I was quoted pointing out in the Florida Jolt. And he doesn't connect with voters. They recognize that. I recognize that. Obviously, the voters recognize that. And he's got no fundraising prowess. I talked about that a bit in my quote to the Florida Jolt. He has no fundraising prowess, no ability to win, no pathway to victory. So they see no point in fooling people into thinking it should remain likely Democrat. It is now a solid Democrat race because the GOP has embraced the wrong candidate. We thought our principles were so great in this South Florida area that we embraced a man who has no chance of winning. So what's the lesson here? You can't solve for perfect. And if you want to win, you actually have to work towards what it will take to win. That means you need to focus locally, but you also, and more importantly, need to focus on the demographics of the community, their needs, and what your messaging as a candidate and party should be. The community could be wrong about the big picture. Those are things you identify in polling, but not everyone's basically going to be part of the choir. That's why we have purple districts, and this was a purple district. So you're supposed to do what people in sales do. You work towards the yes. You get people to agree with you about how they love this country, how they love their community, how they want to safeguard it, how they want to help educate children and keep children safe. And then you talk about why it's so expensive and why it wasn't always that way, and how the next 4 years or 2 years could be better. And that's how you work your way to the yes. But what you don't do is go with the most dogmatic candidate who is going to turn off the crossover votes of the independents and the Democrats. Now, so you might be thinking here, Brian, people say this about Donald Trump all the time. And I'm going to tell you, you're not getting it. And we're going to dive deeper into this in just a moment after the break.
You are listening to Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
So it's Bryan Rudnick here in the Rally for the Republic headquarters. And like you, I could be glued to my TV tomorrow night at 9 p.m. watching Kamala versus the Donald. The left is already trying to undersell her performance. They didn't get ABC to agree to all her rule changes. I want to cry for them. Wah! Donald Trump is showing up, and it doesn't matter what Nancy Pelosi says. He's showing up because he gets it. He knows he's got to get out there and show the American people he's still a leader. He's a problem solver. He's not scared of Kamala. He's not going to let her get under his skin. He's not going to let her do to him what she did to Mike Pence. After all, she doesn't have those rules. And if the Donald Trump we saw on June 27th, the one that was on message, that was disciplined, if that's the Donald Trump that shows up, we're in luck. Voters aren't typically persuaded by debates. Now, unfortunately for Joe Biden, that was an exception. And Kamala here, Team Kamala, they're painting another picture of Trump. So he can't risk proving them right. He's got to show that whatever Kamala and her team, the lies they've been spewing about him because they're trying to cover up her deficiencies, he's got to show the world that they're wrong, that he's what the rest of the world might perceive as presidential, and that he's cool as a cucumber under those hot lights. And he's got to let Kamala be Kamala. He's got to let Kamala do her word salads, and he's got to let Kamala show that all that cramming she's doing with policy is just going to come out poorly because she wants to prove, she's going to go out of her way to try to prove how smart she is, and she's going to crumble. And he's got to let that happen because she's untested. Now, the left in the White House and Team Kamala want you to know that she's had about 90 or so interviews with the media this year prior to becoming their nominee. So one might think back to good old Dan Quayle and the misspellings of the words like potato, or not knowing that, he didn't speak Latin, so he couldn't speak to the people in Latin America. And that doesn't matter for the vice president. And guess what? It doesn't. She was vice president then. She wasn't the nominee for the Democrat Party. Now she's the nominee. She can't barely decide the record she's running on. She had that interview with CNN. It was anything but a home run. And she's on stage all alone tomorrow night without Tall Tale Tim. And she's got to prove that she can fill the shoes of the commander-in-chief. Because the number 2 job in America, well, you sit in number 2. You don't stand in the shoes of number 1. And Team Kamala knows they have a problem. So running campaigns, you think about a debate, you think about positions, you think about how to undermine your opponent. And Team Kamala wants to take the wind out of Donald's sails. So today they went live with a website that has policy positions. I want to say congratulations. It's about time you treat America with respect. 56 days left for America to maybe stumble across the page and see her quote unquote new way forward. And it makes me wonder, what did she think was wrong with the old way? What are we getting in the next forward manner that we didn't get in the last 4 years? So you're thinking there's going to be just amazing stuff on this page. I personally went to it. I looked through it. I perused things. And what's funny, the trend you see is a lot of almost Kamala-style word salads. And at the end of every section, there's an attack on Donald Trump. Attack, attack, attack. A lot of things quoted. But there's no facts. There's no footnotes. There's no citations. There's no sources. They just quote a lot of stuff. It's basically fake news. Because what else do you call it when you put quotes around words, but you don't cite the source? I guess this is what the left means by presidential. They've got their own use of the term presidential. It's always funny when they got historians coming out and pundits, and they've always been talking about Donald Trump since 2016 about whether or not he's presidential. Well, I don't know. He redefined the term presidential as far as I'm concerned. He showed people, you want to be tough? You go to the 38th parallel, you look Kim Jong-un in the eyes, and you let him know how it's going to be. We can't expect that from Kamala, and they know it. So that's another lesson that needs to come across here for the GOP faithful, the liberty-loving Americans, people who want to take back the House, the Senate, the White House, and who want to make sure to win this upcoming battle of our government funding. So let's think about reality, what's going to set in here, because the GOP cannot afford to have Donald Trump fail tomorrow night. We can't afford to let Kamala succeed, and we can't afford to allow the House Republicans or the Senate Republicans to screw up the funding. But what's in reality going to happen is we're going to get something done before the end of the month because they all realize they can't let the clock expire. After all, Hakeem Jeffries, who's trying to be the next Speaker of the House, has put out a letter, and he's already decided that the GOP is unserious and provided an unacceptable proposal. Kind of interesting because I think it's about funding the government at the same levels. He voted for it last time. So see, this is how these Democrats are. See, we need to look at their playbook and look at what they're doing and do it better. He's already drawing a line in the sand for the negotiation, and he's making the GOP look bad. And we need to turn the tables on him. We need to say, Mr. Jeffries, what's wrong with safeguarding our elections? Why are you so scared to protect the American people? Why are you so scared to protect the ballots? Why are you scared to have a true, legal, fair election? They don't want that because they know Kamala doesn't win that way. They understand, like we understand, that the polling, whether it's neck and neck or otherwise, is not realistic. There are conservatives who don't, and Republicans, whether they're conservative or not, but happen to be registered Republicans, they don't like talking to pollsters. And I believe Men are not going to give their real answers to how they perceive Kamala. You heard Autry Pruitt talk about that in a prior episode. And I believe, as I went over with some colleagues recently, and you look at how they present Kamala, that men in America are going to be very turned off by this woman who's attempting to be an alpha male in her very expensive $3,000 to $6,000 pantsuits. And she, here's the Democrat plan. Let's put out another woman of color. Let's have her be super woke, like AOC was when she started out. Let's say lots of weird stuff. Let's say Republicans are bad and get the GOP to cave. So the Republicans need to think about the game plan of what we must do here. Just expect to lose the funding battle. We'll get it done by the end of the month. We're all going to be, as conservatives, we're going to be disappointed. And the Democrats are going to take a victory lap on the SAVE Act. And we need to make sure to put their faces in the pile of manure. We need to do exactly what I said a moment ago and go on the attack against them and shame them. Don't kill our own. And please do not oust another speaker weeks before the election. Just win the damn election. Take our country back and then get it back on track. And then we can get back to regular order and doing what the GOP is supposed to do, like build a wall, get real budgets passed, cut spending, cut government regulations. And unless you're running a campaign, please don't get caught up in these daily poll numbers and waste your time and other people's time talking about them. Remember, if you want to win, the old adage of keep it simple, stupid applies. And that's what we need to make sure. Hopefully, Donald Trump will come through and show us tomorrow night. Because America's hurting, okay? Even stores like Dollar Tree and Family Dollar have publicly said they're witnessing the impact of inflation. And America tomorrow night needs to see the candidate who's going to remind them of the Bill Clinton-esque, I feel your pain. Kamala Harris in her $3,000 to $6,000 pantsuits, and I don't even know what those shoes cost, is going to try to get us to believe that she's Mother Teresa while acting like Marie Antoinette. And Donald Trump needs to stand up there and be the same president that went toe-to-toe with Kim Jong-un. And he needs to show people why he's the only one who can handle Putin. And don't be scared that Donald Trump says he respects him or something that the left wants you to think sounds nice about Putin, because what Donald Trump's trying to say is he can handle the man. And he probably can, and Putin knows that. Why do you think Putin and company want to sway the election for Kamala? Don't let your friends get distracted or your loved ones with some of the things that get said last night, what you heard in the polls this weekend, or anything else. Doesn't matter how unacceptable Hakeem Jeffries finds the Republican proposal to be. What everybody needs to understand is simple, plain and simple. You've got a choice, Comrade Kamala or Donald Trump. It's that simple. So put your pencils down. The lesson is over for today. Because this is Rally for the Republic. It's about America for the Americans. It's not a show for the Cheneys or their friends. Yeah, I'm talking about treasonous Dick Cheney and his rhino daughter, Liz. It's not a show for people who want to come up with excuses for sticking it to Donald Trump, especially this close to the election, or turning their backs on the GOP so they can continue to prop up the deep state and enrich themselves, like the Cheneys. And it's not a show for people who want to claim to be smart and successful, like a bunch of CEOs who just recently announced that they're supporting Kamala Harris because they just proved otherwise. This is a show for people who are tired of the deep state, who are tired of the establishment, of which the Cheneys clearly are a part of. That establishment that helped to ruin our country, put us in long wars, things like that, hurt generations of American children. This is a show for people who cherish our constitutional rights, who can see the big picture and understand, like Donald Trump, it's multidimensional. Yeah, big SAT word there. It's a show for people who cling to their guns and religion. And unlike Kamala, who immediately went to seeking to ban AR-15s, which are not assault rifles, after that unfortunate school shooting last week, you understand that there's this thing called personal responsibility. and where parents are responsible, where the community is responsible for giving what the child needs, not for infringing upon the rights of other citizens based on some false narrative. This is the Rally for the Republic, where we know the threats to our republic are the Democratic Party and their allies. And we're here as the members of Rally for the Republic to say no more. So I thank you for listening. Please continue to join us and rally for this republic. Engage with us. Feedback at rallyfortherepublic.com. Continue to share and like us. We're on all the platforms, all social media. I'm Bryan Rudnick. I thank you for your time. Please continue to have faith in this republic, and together we will save it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Rally for the Republic, where we are fighting for America's future. Visit 1776coalition.com. Rally for the Republic podcast is available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and download. Join Bryan Rudnick next time as we continue to fight for the American way of life and challenge the hypocrisy. This is Rally for the Republic.